how to use Blab as we speak, so this ought to be fun.
I know. I don't know if you saw me just doing my just talking to myself and just working through all the technicalities of it. But yeah, it looks like we're all good. So I'm going to just do a little intro here for those people listening either live in the Blab or on the podcast later on. So welcome to this first Blab edition of the Edtech podcast, and I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Global Teacher Award finalist Jo Fatheree, who is media production and innovation teacher at Effingham High School in Illinois in the US. And Jo is also a previous recipient of the Illinois Teacher of the Year Award and has worked with the National Network of State Teachers of the Year to develop education policy initiatives with government. And having spoken to Jo previously, I'm super excited to share with you some of his amazing international and project-based learning techniques, which have covered everything and anything from drones, 3D printing, virtual reality, filmmaking, and much more. So just quickly before we start, this is a bit of a guinea pig experiment, the first Blab that I've taken part in, certainly. So for those of you taking part in the live Blab, you can get involved by typing questions and comments in the right-hand bar, which we will pick up from time to time. We will also run the Blab for 30 minutes, at which point I'll obviously let you all know, and then you can click, there'll be a cross at the top of your names where you can exit the Blab. And then subsequently, the recording will also be released via the Edtech podcast on iTunes, Pocket Cast, and TuneIn Radio. So without further ado, on with the show. So welcome to Blab, Jo, and thanks very much for joining us. And I understand you also have some students here today, so hello to those guys as well.
Yes, and I appreciate you having us on, and we're going to try to hop on a variety of different ways. One, they're working on smartphones right now, and if that doesn't work, you may see some people filter in behind me, and we'll have some conversation with them live. So either way, we're excited about being on board.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming. And so first off, my first question is, obviously in your bio there are, it's a plethora of different awards. So what's different about the way you teach? Like, why do you keep winning all of these awards?
Well, you know, I think it's the question about how I teach is the one that I kind of look at every year. And I want to go back to when I first started teaching. I really felt like I had a great undergraduate training in the science of teaching. And I got into the classroom and I started teaching low-level students how to read and write, and I found out immediately right out of the gate I didn't know how to connect with them. And I really struggled with that because I was trying to bring my passion to the table, and everything that I'd been taught, it seemed like the harder I worked, the farther I was pushing the kids away. And finally, a group of the students came in and they said, after about 4 weeks of this, they said, Mr. Fatheree, he said, we go from dummy math to dummy history to dummy English, and you're honestly an idiot for trying to teach us because we can't learn anything. And I'm thinking, my gosh, 17 and 18 years of age, you've given up on learning and given up on life already. And I went home really despondent that weekend, and my wife's also a teacher, and I told her, I said, this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to find something else because they need somebody that really knows how to connect with students to be able to do that. And I went home and tried to reinvent who I was as a classroom teacher. And back then in the early 90s, it was the rise of the hip-hop era. And here in central Illinois, you might be surprised that it's not the hip-hop capital of North America. And my wife and I went out and we found all of these clothes that the hip-hop artists were using. I cut lines into my hair back when I had it. And I came in that next Monday morning and they're like, what has happened to you? And I said, well, you know what we're going to do is we're going to find a way to take music and connect you to storytelling and writing. And after they got over the initial shock of seeing me as a hip hop artist, it really transformed things. My attendance rates went through the roof. My discipline problems dropped through the floor. And what I discovered was a big part of the problem was me. I wasn't finding ways to connect my kids to the real world. And that's what I've been doing ever since, is we work really hard to find real world projects to connect the curriculum to that way. And it's what has inspired and transformed everything that we actually do.
Amazing. So, yeah, I mean, I'll send you a link to. There's a guy called Westwood here who, if you want to go back to your hip hop roots, might be quite useful. I'll explain offline, perhaps. Okay, so I mean, I know we spoke previously about some of the projects you've been involved with, and what I love about those is that they're so ambitious, and they're not kind of, I suppose, just kept within the school environment. They're very much about engaging students right out, sort of from a product development point of view, almost to sort of launch. So I think previously you mentioned getting your students into the UN. What projects have you got recently sort of coming up with your students?
Well, just a few of them that I think really were transformative for the students and our community. One, we were in class one day talking. I had a student talk to me about they were having an argument about what poverty was, and their idea was poverty at that time was you didn't own a new pair of Oakley sunglasses. And I said, I'm pretty sure that's not poverty. And you sit back and you start laughing about these things, but it's because nobody's taught them about it. And so we went out, the kids collected over 50,000 articles of clothing, books. They found a literacy expert that would go into homes of illiterate mothers in disenfranchised communities an hour and a half away from here. They created libraries for entire communities, and they really dug in and started learning not only about what causes poverty, about what you can do to overcome it. They've hosted national summits on poverty with kids from around the United States here. That type of work, and that led us to doing a film on poverty and how it's impacting the world. And so the students were invited a few years ago to the International Summit on Human Rights at UNESCO in Paris. And to be 17 and 18 years of age and be able to take a stand on in front of a global audience about what you feel we need to be doing to transform the world, I thought was incredibly powerful. And then I also work as a documentary filmmaker outside of the classroom, and I got asked to sit on a panel for the film One Day on Earth. And I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but they filmed. Well, it was a powerful, powerful film. They came up with the idea of what happens if we would film a documentary in one day from every country on the earth. So it was October 10th, 2010. And my students got asked to participate, and they did a piece on how farmers work to feed the world. And it really kicked off a piece on hunger. And so the students that worked on that were invited to go to the UN headquarters in New York to watch the global premiere as their film footage showed in literally almost every country on the earth on the same day. And so to be a high school student and have the opportunity to learn how to collaborate and share amongst large audiences is an incredible opportunity for them. And now we're doing a lot of work with 3D printing. I've got one of my students here that has one of the projects right in front of me. So I don't know at some point if you'd like to get Dustin or Matt on.
I think bring them on now.
Come on over here, guys. You can do it on there too if you'd like. It's whatever you want. So you want to come over here first, and this is Dustin, and Matt's going to hop on here as well.
Hi, Dustin.
So, hi. One of the projects that we have worked on, it's a Iron Man helmet that you can actually wear and look through the eyes and everything. With this, we learned some of the basics of, well, actually a little bit more than the basics of 3D printing, the different types of it, and how to use it to create some pretty awesome projects.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and so that's. Go ahead, Sophie.
I was just going to ask, how long did that take?
It took us probably overall about a month to do, but there was probably about 100 hours of 3D printing involved.
Wow.
And we worked with a body shop here in town to have it painted with actually car paint, and so has a very nice look to it.
And how did you go about actually designing the piece in terms of the software? Did you have to use a piece of software to kind of design it up in the beginning?
Yeah, we got some of the basic file parts online, and then we modified them using some 3D CAD SolidWorks, I believe, and to modify some of the parts that we could actually wear it and size it correctly and everything.
Amazing. I've had a question come in. How many pieces is the helmet made of? So how many parts is it composed of?
I believe it's 13 pieces total.
Okay, 13. Wow. Okay.
On the inside, you probably won't be able to see it, but there's a lot of
well, there's like some new adhesives that we didn't even know were available, but because we partnered with a community member that does this for a profession, he taught the students how to be able to do that. And I think that's a really incredibly important part too about working with community, so that you're engaging community members in and creating that connection. And then Dustin and CJ, who's not here right now, did an absolutely incredible job of working and taking and leading this project. And that led us to go from something that was fun and exciting. I mean, who doesn't want to be Iron Man? But at the end of the day, you know, there's got to be some practical pieces with it. And if you want to switch that out, I'll have you hop on here and talk a little bit about all the virtual reality software. Why don't you do this, Dustin? I'm going to have Matt come on and talk about the next piece. And then Sophie, Matt is trying to log on as a participant.
Yeah. Hang on. I'm going to approve him.
Set it up on the table so it looks nicer.
There we go.
And what? Okay. And what? There he is. You'll just have to connect, Matt. So we went. If you're familiar with virtual reality and augmented reality, the students now have done an incredible amount of work of doing some stuff like that with Google Cardboard and printing. And I'll turn this back over to Dustin. I mean, he's the star of the show, not me. So
with this, we found this design and also made our own for virtual reality. This is similar to Google Cardboard because you can just stick your phone in this and then look through the lenses. But what this allows us to do is make you feel like you're anywhere in the world. And there have been 360-degree videos that have been made by like the New York Times, and which that allows us to see.
Getting a bit of feedback, maybe.
Yeah, I can't turn my audio on.
you switch phones. There we go.
Yeah, is that better? Cool.
That's a lot better. All right. So that allows us to see what life is like for some kids in Africa and other places. This combined with the 360 photos and 360 videos allows us to experience these different things.
Fantastic. And have you thought about, is this kind of sparked any interest in terms of continuing around design or I suppose engaging in sort of digital aspects beyond school when you're thinking about what you want to do?
Absolutely. It's made me think about like going into mechanical and electrical engineering and how I could take some of this and maybe start my own company or do some different projects that way. And
Joe, sorry, carry on. I was just going to ask Joe, for those sort of teachers who are listening or leaders in education, is there an easy way for them to kind of find out perhaps how you went about the project or the actual links to perhaps designing the Iron Man mask as a project and that kind of thing?
They can connect with me at Joe, J-O-E, at nnstoy.org. I'll put that down in the chat window down here.
Yeah.
And we're going to put together a class website for this because we've had so many people start asking as to what we're doing. We would love to work with schools all around the world because that's one of the problems we've had, I think, in public education for the last several years is everybody works in a silo. And we have so many brilliant people on here right now. I'd like to know what they're doing in their classrooms. And let's see if we can cross-pollinate some of those things. Because the cool thing is we all have brilliant kids.
Yep.
And we work really hard in here to turn that over and to make them fearless. Now, I'm going to bring Dustin on real quick because I want him, or not Dustin, but Matt. I want him to show one of the newer projects that we're doing that's kind of related to automated systems like Google Car, if you've heard of it. So Matt, if you want to kind of bring some of that up here, and Dustin may have to help you, I don't know. So
all right, so right here we have now it's two pieces of a robot, but it will be connected, and it's transporting a marker from our office conference room to Mr. Father's room. And we're doing that
because
completely.
they're too lazy to do it themselves?
Yes. We're going to get it without any human interaction. So then it's going to simulate Google Car, Amazon Prime with Prime Air, and any other form of automation that we've got. So it's going to go from this Lego mode of transportation, and then it's going to transfer to this drone, which will act as like Amazon. And so we've got a couple other conveyor belts that we're using, as well as this crane / boat that we constructed using, let's see if I can get it, these NXT Mindstorms that can program anything from following a certain line, color, how far, like distance with ultrasonic sensors. And so that's kind of what we're working with, just programming. So
amazing.
And Dustin,
sorry.
well, one of the things I really would like to make sure that we talk about is the number of times these kids have failed. And so I'd like to talk to them just a little bit about failure and how it's a driver, not an inhibitor for your growth.
Right. Yeah. So whenever we fail, like we really want to get stuff done. So failure doesn't really set us back a whole lot. It gives us frustrations, but it teaches us how not to do something as well. Like Thomas Edison said, he didn't fail 10,000 times. He just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. So
we'll have to get that quote. We'll share it with everyone.
So I don't know. Do you have other questions with Matt about any of these, or?
Well, I had one question come in about, again, I think it was the helmet, in terms of which 3D printer was used. It's the question that came in on the sidebar here.
We used MakerBot.
MakerBot, cool.
And come on over here, Dustin. And we made it fully wearable. And one of the things we like to do is we like to create excitement around projects and to celebrate. And one of the things that I love doing is when like little 5- and 6-year-old boys, future scientists, or girls that are going to be future engineers, they come in and they get to be Iron Man for 20 minutes. It's a way to inspire the next generation. And I think sometimes we've worked so hard to create learning environments that we've absolutely just sucked the fun out of school. And learning can be tremendously fun. And if you're going to promote failure in your school, then it's going to have to be fun. Our kids are not going to want to be involved in it. It's the same way as adults. So we try to make the learning process incredibly exciting, incredibly fun. And I think we've been very successful with that.
And I mean, that's very topical at the moment. So you've got like Angela Lee Duckworth and her book and her sort of TED talk on grit as well. So that idea that actually we need to just normalize the fact that failure is completely relevant. And you don't always see that in the end product. If someone's excellent, you just sort of see the fact that they're fantastically good at something, but they've done those hours and hours of boring practice. So yeah, really, really important.
Well, I think the other thing, and if you guys want to hop on and answer any of these questions, you can hop on and text and do that. I think one of the other things that we do as teachers is sometimes we take for granted that our students just understand how to do all this stuff. And I don't mean necessarily the things I'm showing you. I mean doing history, math, writing, all of those things. And so one of the most important things we do in my class is we create a culture that promotes creativity. And I use this story a lot about in kindergarten, if you bring in a bunch of 5-year-olds and hands all go up and they're excited and they can hardly wait to tell you their answer. And it's everything from a fly on the wall to a polar bear's nose in a snowstorm. And somewhere over time, 2nd grade, they raise their hand in math class and they get laughed at. A kid gets up to recite a poem in 5th grade and somebody snickers. And what they learn is if I put myself out there, I'm going to be made fun of, I'm going to be ridiculed. And you start thinking about the consequences of that. There may have went the cure for cancer, the solution to global warming, how to have real dialogue about racism, all those things that we'd like to get fixed, but we can't. And so in here, we work really, really, really hard about building that culture. And are you still on there, Sophie? I've just lost your video. I'm giving her props, but I'm not there. But I'm going to go ahead and go on. And I think the next piece that we really work on is teaching students how to ask questions, how to really have those what if questions. What do questions look like? And that's one of the things that we do is we really work on, visually helping them understand those things. And so, a lot of things that, we just think kids understand that. They understand how to embrace failure, how to handle constructive criticism. They don't. And just like a lot of times with adults, we want to learn those things. So I think it's so important. There she is. She's back. I think it's so important to create that culture and give our students the tools that they need. That's what I spend the bulk of the first part of the quarter doing. And it's amazing because people are afraid to raise their hand, but by the time we get past that, it's like a train running in the dark at full speed, and they're excited and it's energetic, and we're doing all kinds of building and things. I just think, what if every classroom looked like that? And that's what we're trying to explore.
And you mentioned sort of connecting with sort of getting outside of the silos before. So how are you connecting with other schools and with other leaders, both sort of in the US but internationally as well?
Oh my gosh, that's the fun thing, and I've got a couple of questions in there I want to answer as well. I see on the chat, but being the strategic project director for the National Network of State Teachers of the Year, and I would encourage everyone to check the organization out, and I'll just put the web address down here real quick. I was the Illinois State Teacher of the Year in 2007. In the United States, we've been naming state and national teachers of the year and finalists for state teacher of the year since 1952. And it's a collection of all of those individuals, and I get to work with them on a daily basis, which networks me with teachers literally around the country. And now being named a Varkey Teacher Ambassador by the Varkey Foundation, part of the Global Teacher Prize, I'm working with teachers all over the world. And that's one of, I think, should be our jobs, and it's definitely one of my goals, is taking all the years of work as 29 years in the classroom. How do I share that out with other people? That, we shouldn't make the learning straight up. It ought to be this collection of talent. And I understand, unfortunately, there are great teachers out there that will unfortunately never be identified as a state or national teacher of the year. But I would encourage them to especially look at the Global Teacher Prize. The application is going to be coming out here in another month. But share your story. For so long, we've kept our stories in silos. And I think it's important to let your kids, give them a platform, help them showcase stuff. And it's one of the reasons why actually my community supports our work so much, is because we're transparent and they know so much what's going on in our classroom.
Okay, so being transparent. And are there any sort of tools or resources or apps that you find really useful as well to sort of help either the innovation that you kind of lead on and or the sharing side of things as well?
Well, I think if you're wanting to look at innovation, the D School at Stanford has really good introductory lessons that you can use for idea starters.
What was that called?
We have a growing, it's called the D School.
D School, okay.
And I can just put it down here in the chat box.
We'll put all
Stanford
the
University
show notes as well.
Yes, and it's a design school at Stanford, and they have some really great lessons and thought processes that are out there. I think building your own YouTube channel is big. We've started developing a really good presence out there. If you look up AHA Student Films on YouTube, we hosted one of the nation's largest student-operated film festivals for years. And we've shown our work everywhere. And it's just a platform for students to be able to showcase their work. And it really validates why you're asking to do everything that you do. You think about kids so often, they work really hard on a project, they give it to the teacher, and it's never seen again. And I think one of the things we have to do is we have to create a platform for them, and especially in this day and age when they can communicate across, vast areas, to large audiences, we need to be teaching them how to be able to communicate like that.
So give me an idea, actually. We should do another one of these, and it will be all the students, and we'll just set it up and maybe get students from around the world to come and teach us, do some reverse mentoring.
Oh my gosh, I would love to do that. And we have a collection of students that would learn as much from everyone else out there, but let me know if we could do that. And I saw a question up here that I wanted to hit was about how does this fit in your standard curriculum? And I think that's really important to consider as well. I teach a design class now, and so it's easy for people to look at it and say, well, you can do whatever you want. Well, we don't. We have learning standards that we have to abide by. But when I taught English and history, we had learning standards there as well. And so I think in this day and age, it doesn't matter what the vehicle you're using as long as you've got a starting place. So in the United States, I use the Common Core state standards and the ISTE standards. Those are my foundation for our work. And then I work with the students to design ideas that we can incorporate those standards in. And so I know what standards I got to reach during the course of the year. And what I find is because my students are much more engaged, we can push them much harder. They're self-driven, they're motivated, and the success rate is tremendously better. And some of our grading comes from the projects that you've seen, and some of it comes from standardized tests. There's always going to be a mixture of those things, but because we have the standards as a baseline, I can really measure my students' growth against those of others. And in this day and age, that's an important thing to be able to do.
And those standards, are those defined within the school, or are they defined within the kind of local government, or how does it work, where you're based?
Well, you can look up the Common Core state standards when they came out. There was a lot of controversy behind them because at that point in time, literally every state had developed their own standard over time. And if you lived in the United States, I'm about an hour and 15 minutes from the Indiana border. And students, if a student moved from Indiana to Illinois, they might have a comparable learning experience, but maybe not necessarily so. And the way our government is written, the states have the power to define what learning looks like. And so it was a very difficult task for the federal government to come in and say, here's what you're doing, because that was unconstitutional. But what they did was the governors and the state superintendents, they got together, and the Council of Chief State School Officers got together, and they started working on these standards, especially in English, language arts, and mathematics. And it's given us a common playing area to start with. But what I really like about them is it's not just content-based where you're remembering something for today for a test for tomorrow. You're really asking students to take the skills they're learning and show how they can apply them. And that's what's really important in life, in a society where you've got to be able to showcase what you know and how you know it. I think that's a really important piece. The only thing that I wish we would add, I spoke at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. about 3 weeks ago. Dr. Fernando Reimers from Harvard University just launched his new book on 21st century competency skills, and really talking about those foundational skills that sometimes we don't take enough time as classroom teachers to work on because we're worried about so much else, but it's collaboration, project management, the ability to think critically, all of those things. I hope that's the next area that we're looking to go to, but I'm really excited about Professor Reimer's work because I think it's groundbreaking.
Okay, definitely. Well, I'll have to look that up. I'm just getting a bit of an echo about that for some reason. So yeah, I think certainly in the UK, people would share perhaps your experiences on assessment. So we have a sort of similar experience where people are now trying to establish their own, I suppose, ways of assessing success, and then either trying to collaborate or share what's working for them. Do you have any best practice or recommendations for educators here on the front of negotiating what you just spoke about? So, for example, the need to balance standardization and the needs of the curriculum and government with, what you've been very successful with, which is innovation and, teaching in your own style, because I think that's ultimately what educators get very excited about, but they kind of seem to struggle with fitting that all in with the time available and all the pressures that are on them on a sort of daily basis as well.
Well, and that's very understandable, and I think it's a universal problem. Even when I went to Dubai for the Global Teacher Prize, I was talking to a teacher who was from the States and was now working there, and I was asking her why she came, and she said, "Well, I left Dubai, I left the United States to escape testing, but testing has found me." And there seems to be this quest to measure everything that we do, and that our kids, the only way we can measure success is through bubbles. And while I believe assessment is really important, I don't believe it's the only way to measure. And I'm sure every teacher on this call believes the same. And I think a lot of the administrators do. I think the challenge is that a lot of our administrators, they want the same thing that that the teachers want. They want the students to find success. They want their teachers to be excited about working. And I think our policymakers are the same way. I work with a lot of them. And, we have these negative pictures of both sides painted, but it's honestly because we're just not talking. And what I found is, as I've shown my administrators real examples of how this works, and I go down and bring them down to my classroom, and if they're busy, honestly, we take my classroom to the office. And both of my building principals flew to Dubai with me.
Wow. That's
the kind of support that I have at Effingham Unit 40. It's an incredible district to work in. And they have seen now how you can take non-traditional learning and really wrap it into a classroom, and kids can meet the standards at a higher level. And so what I would encourage the people on this podcast to do is really start looking around at some of the teachers who are doing this already and ask them to share their lessons, and then take those tangible pieces to your administrator and say, hey, let's pilot this together. Let's do a case study. One of the things I like about Finland is the fact that they train their teachers to be research scientists. We need to become that, because it becomes really hard for us when we go to an administrator and say, here's what we want to do. And he or she's like, okay, why? How are you going to meet the learning standards? And I'm like, well, I'm not sure. What do you expect is going to happen out of it? Well, I don't know how to do that. And so I think for us to help alleviate some of their fears, we can bring that information to them. And then that also creates a case study that you can bring to policymakers. I've seen a dynamic shift in not only the way administrators think, but community members think, and now policymakers are thinking here in the United States. And I can kind of close this question, I think, with this answer. I was one of 6 teachers in the United States in 2015 that was invited to attend the International Summit on Teaching with Secretary Duncan in Alberta, Canada. And, we got to really meet with a lot of the leading countries around the world. And every one of them was trying to create the most innovative classrooms on the globe. So the desire's there. But what I found even there was the fact that a lot of them didn't have examples. So what I think that we as teachers can do is we can build those products, have the students, like we're doing right now, tell the anecdotal stories. And when you mix that with hard data, it really completes a compelling argument for us to be able to have.
And so, I mean, do you know of any repositories where we're, internationally people are putting these case studies and building that kind of database of examples which are working to help build that case for everyone?
Well, that's a great question. And I was, like I said, speaking in DC a couple of weeks ago. I have an organization that just contacted me, and I haven't had a chance to vet their materials yet, so I don't want to say anything. But from what I heard, it sounds really promising. So what I will do is pass that back on to you, because that's the same conversation as I hear everywhere. Yeah. I don't know what this looks like. And what I was told was, well, we have samples, and I know at Instoy that's something that we're wanting to do as well, as start collecting samples. And so I think you're going to start seeing a lot of this shortly, but the piece I have, I'll get that to you as quickly as I can.
Amazing. Well, I've kind of realized we're slightly over time, so I'm just going to end with one question. So obviously you were the finalist in the Global Teacher Awards, and as I understand, so you have that network of finalists who are working together. And I know you mentioned the concert in Rome that's coming up. What's kind of what should we expect coming online from that network of finalists as a sort of very powerful group of collaborators for education?
Well, it's one of those places, and these are the same type of teachers that are on here right now, where you get in a room and it doesn't matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We're talking about great teaching and kids, and the energy just is literally off the charts. So we hadn't been in Dubai 5 minutes and everybody all of a sudden was best friends, and we're like, hey, tell us what you're doing, share. And so three of us are trying to host a concert. One person will be doing it live in Rome the 27th of this month. 2 of us from the States will be joining via Skype and having our students perform live. But I think the really great thing is over the next few years, as the Varkey Teacher Ambassador Program goes, you're going to see a lot of resources coming out. We're working on right now a teacher toolkit that's supposed to roll out sometime later this year. And we're really excited about sharing pedagogy, best practice, and also learning from a lot of other great teachers out there that don't have a platform, and us working with them to help enabling them to have one. So that's the exciting piece for me. And if I were everyone on here, check out #TeachersMatter, and also follow things on the Global Teacher Prize website, because there'll be a lot more information coming, I know, in the next few months.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking part today, and thank you to your students, and I'm sure we'll be doing more of these in the future. So I just wanted to thank you very much, and we'll collate all of the show notes from today as well.
No, hey, and appreciate you having me on, and thanks to all the great teachers out there doing amazing work. Please get a hold of me. We'd love to connect and just continue to make the world turn a little faster.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a good one. Take care.
Take care.